Hello, welcome to Book Talk at a book place. This is a place where we get to hear someone or an author share about his or her book, and we get to know the author too. And today we are lucky to have one great person who has a great book and is going to speak to us about it. And the person that we are having on our show today is known as Stephen Gardner. And Stephen Gardner is an internist at Massachusetts General Hospital, an assistant professor of medicine at Harvard Medical School. As a member of MGH Global Disaster Response Team, he has served in Haiti and the Philippines with Project Hope. He has been a volunteer physician at Mother's Vineyard Cerebral Palsy Camp, which is known as Camp Jabberwocky. And the book that we are going to hear about today is based on this wonderful name. I've not had this name again. So we are not going to waste more time because we have Steve with us. We are going to introduce Steve. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Anthony, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
And you said the word just right. The word is Jabberwocky.
Oh, thank you.
Do you want me to explain that a little bit?
Oh, yeah, sure. That would be good.
You know, originally that word was the name of a nonsense poem written by Lewis Carroll, the author who wrote Alice in Wonderland. And back in those days, in the 1800s, for some reason, these poets liked writing poems that had total nonsense in them. So in this case, he used words and imagery like bandersnatch, slidey toves, jub, mamaraths, outgrade. And when you read the story or the poem, it sounds like it's saying something, but it actually isn't saying anything at all. So it's sort of it's a famous nonsense poem. So back in 1953, a woman named Helen Lamb, who was an actress in London, and happened to really like Lewis Carroll, came to the United States, came to America, and worked as a speech therapist. And she was helping kids who had disabilities, especially kids with what my son had, which is called cerebral palsy. And those kids were having trouble speaking. Most of them were in wheelchairs. And as she went around to see these children in her work as a speech therapist, she found that she was becoming increasingly upset and even angry that these kids really never saw the light of day. On a beautiful summer day, they were sitting in their parents' dim parlors of a house. And like able-bodied kids, they never got outside and did normal things. So she made a resolution in her mind and her heart at that moment that she was going to do something to make it possible for these kids with disabilities to get outside, to go to the beach, to have a cookout, to ride a horse, and to do all the things that able-bodied kids can do. She found a place on a little island off of Massachusetts called Martha's Vineyard. And basically, with a wing and a prayer and very little money, she took 3 children with wheelchairs over there, way back in the summer of 1953, and started a camp for disabled children. And the name that came to her was Jabberwocky. So she decided to call the camp Jabberwocky. And then subsequently, as time went on, each of the buildings that grew up on the campus was given the name from one of those crazy words in the poem, like bandersnatch, slidey toves, jub, mamaraths. And this was the first sleepover camp for kids with serious disabilities in the United States, way back 68 years ago, long before it was politically correct to have disabled people out in plain sight and participating in daily activities. So this lady, Mrs. Lamb, was a pioneer in that respect. If we flash forward a little bit from there, my son became a camper. at Camp Jabberwocky. And I sort of was able to ride his coattails into the camp by becoming one of the camp doctors.
Okay.
And he and I spent a total of 13 summers together at that beautiful place, going to the beach, riding horses, laughing a lot with the other campers and volunteers, being silly, and enjoying this fantastic community that Mrs. Lamb created. So years later, I got around to writing a book about all this. Unfortunately, my son passed away at age 22.
Sorry for that.
And that was really a tough one. But I decided to write a memoir about the beauty of his life, the love that he spread. And the setting of the story is this magical camp on this beautiful island called Martha's Vineyard. So I called the book also Jabberwocky. So Jabberwocky refers to the poem from Lewis Carroll, the camp on Martha's Vineyard. And now it also refers to my book, which is essentially about the philosophy of this place. And the philosophy of this place is we are all in this together, whoever we are, whatever our abilities might be, whatever our disabilities might be. We are all part of one community. We are all part of one family. And this place is one of the few places on earth where I've seen that ethos completely embraced with open hearts and open minds. So that's what I've tried to write about in my book, Jabberwocky.
Wow, wow, that's quite interesting. And I'm trying to imagine this. Out of nothingness, out of a word that makes no sense, a woman comes and finds sense in it, or rather takes the word and puts some sense in it, and something grows out of it, and it becomes a book that we are discussing today, which we are going to draw some sense from and some value from. But that's quite interesting. And we look for this experience and this wonderful journey. So
Anthony, I never asked Mrs. Lamb why she chose the name Jabberwocky. She passed away at age 99 a few years ago. But I suspect that she was thinking that in our world there is a lot of randomness. There are a lot of events that happen that really don't make sense. For example, why does one person get cancer and his neighbor or his sibling doesn't get cancer? Or why is one child like my son born with cerebral palsy and he cannot talk, he can't help himself, he can't feed himself, and another child is completely normal? So I think she was maybe referring to this notion that in the universe, there are elements of chance that are out of our control. And maybe that was the reason, or maybe she just liked the word, or both.
You never know. But
I'll never know.
Interesting. The most beautiful thing that I am seeing here is that whatever the meaning was, or whatever she thought of when she was putting down the word, giving the place the word, is that now it's going to matter much more when people are going to read this book. But before we jump right into the book, we would like to know something about yourself before Jabberwocky. Where you grew up, how you grew up, the experiences, a little bit about yourself so that we get to know you more.
Anthony, I grew up in New England, outside of Boston. I had a sort of a fairy tale childhood, with playing Little League baseball, skating in the wintertime on ponds. It seemed like a very innocent world. No one in my family was a physician. My father was a photographer, which actually has become a passionate hobby of mine. But toward the end of my experience in college, I just woke up one day and I realized what I wanted to do when I grow up. And I realized that what I wanted to do when I grow up is to be a physician. And so I was a little behind the other students because I hadn't done that during the regular 4 years of college. So I went back and I took pre-med classes, eventually went to medical school.
Yeah.
And then I was very lucky to be accepted at this place, Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston, one of the world's greatest hospitals, as a resident doctor. And I did my training there. By the way, when I was at Massachusetts General Hospital, I often felt like Ringo Starr with the Beatles, which was, what's a bloke like me doing with all these people? In other words, I always felt these other people were smarter than me, were better equipped or better qualified than me. But as time went on, I realized that they felt the same way too. That everybody sort of felt that thing. So I had a career there for a number of years, surrounded by enormously kind people. So the doors of the place opened in 1811. And here we are many, many years later, and no person has ever been turned away from the door of that hospital. I'm so proud of that. Really very, very proud to have been part of such a place for all these years. And there are many opportunities for volunteer service, like what you mentioned in your introduction of me. We have a team that goes all over the world when there's a disaster. In my case, I got to spend 3 months down in Haiti after that big earthquake. That was a tough time. But so that provided for me the background of becoming a volunteer doctor at Camp Jabberwocky. And when I came to Camp Jabberwocky, even though I had this background of being surrounded by smart and kind people, I was still stunned by what I saw. What I saw was very young people, teenage kids, who could take care of a completely disabled adult 24 hours a day and really never stop laughing the whole time and never complain about it and never feel sorry for themselves. So even though I had been around people who were smart and kind for my whole adult life, there was something going on at this camp that was even on another level. And it took me a while to stop being stunned and realize that I could become part of that myself.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that brief history about yourself coming to Jabberwocky. And we jump into Jabberwocky, the book, Lessons of Love from a Boy Who Never Spoke. And this book is talking about Graham Gardner, your son. The camp was open at 53. When was Graham born?
He was born in 1987.
Okay, so many
years. So the camp had been there for many, many years before we started there.
Okay. And when he was born in 86, you said, and you went to Jabberwocky after how long? I mean, how old was Graham?
Graham was starting at Jabberwocky around age 10, Anthony. And he finished his final year he was almost 23. So we had about 13 summers there together. And by the way, his mom also was a volunteer cooking. And it's not that easy to cook for 80 people, but she was doing that.
Oh, okay. So the camp has had 80 people by the time you're still there, Eve, I guess, right?
Well, we missed last year, as you would guess, for the first time ever because of pandemic. But we are going in about 3 weeks. We'll be down there to resume Camp Jabberwocky again.
And she's always been there serving together with you.
She's been a cook there and also at a sister camp in a state called Vermont, which is north of here. And she likes to cook and does a great job. So she's in demand at those places.
That's wonderful. And it's good when your loved ones are with you in whatever you're going through your good times and as well as your tough times. So your wife has always been with you from the word go, and you've been with her, I guess, Because what I want to imagine is that women go through a lot of things in relation to our children. I mean, she's the one who carried Graham, she bore Graham. So maybe she benefited much more by you being there by her side and you always reminding her that we are in this together.
Yeah.
And she has a support system, you have a support system as you are moving on, and you are there supporting each other. That's a wonderful thing. I like that.
Yeah. And that the camp itself, Anthony, is one giant support system.
Okay.
So whoever is there, whether they're a camper or a volunteer,
yeah,
they receive the open hearts, open minds, and sometimes the teasing and laughter of all the other people who were there. So the campers might be teasing the camp doctor.
Yeah.
The campers might be teasing the cook. We're all in this together. And by the way, the idea of laughter is very central to the camp's principle. In fact, the camp director likes to say, at Camp Jabberwocky, we take our silliness very seriously, which is sort of a contradiction, but what she means is we love to laugh, we love to be silly, we love to be playful and whimsical, we love to tease each other.
Yeah.
And all of that is a wonderful thing, especially it can be therapeutic if you've been through some trauma or some adversity. An environment like that will always make you feel better.
Yeah,
as a doctor, I've discovered there are even some scientific reasons why you feel better.
Okay.
When you're laughing a lot. One of them is that your hormone called cortisol goes down.
Okay.
And cortisol is what we call the stress hormone. So it's good to have cortisol when we need it. If we're crossing the street and we're going to get run down by a truck, we would like a little jolt of cortisol, so we jump out of the way. But in a general sense, it's bad to have high levels of cortisol, and lots of people in the modern world do, because of all the stressors we have in this modern world of ours.
Yeah.
So apparently, one thing that happens when we laugh a lot, when we're silly, when we tease each other, when we giggle, is that our cortisol levels go down.
Okay.
And at the same time, some of our feel-good hormones go up.
Okay.
So our endorphins, a hormone called oxytocin, goes up. So there may be a sort of a scientific basis for why we feel so good at Camp Jabberwocky.
Oh, that's an eye opener for someone who is watching this today, or who is listening to this today. If you're going through some stress of a kind, either through the challenges that you're facing, and especially these tough times, the pandemic is giving people some hard time, or even you have a special need, child that you're taking care of, or parent, or sister, or brother, then laughter could do something. I mean, have some laughter with you on a daily basis. Yeah, thank you very much for that insight.
Sorry, there's a researcher in the U.S. out at Stanford University who has been making a joke about this. It's kind of funny. So because the cortisol goes down and endorphins go up, and oxytocin goes up, well, it turns out one of the things that makes oxytocin go up is sex. So her joke is that laughing is kind of like exercising, meditating, and having sex all at the same time. So she likes to make that joke just to sort of chill her audience down a little bit. So yeah, laughter is just crucial to that experience at Jabberwocky.
Oh, that's very good. And I believe it's played a big part in even your healing process. We'll come to that as we are summarizing, but I believe it's contributed very much in how you face the challenges throughout the life of Graham and life after Graham. Okay, before we all come to that, let's view a little bit about life before Jabberwocky with Graham.
Well, when you hear the news, Anthony, that you have a child who's going to have a handicap, obviously it's a very sobering bit of news that you hear.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, when we heard the term cerebral palsy, we didn't know what that meant. It turns out that cerebral palsy is let's call it a wastebasket term, meaning it can be a mild injury to the brain, or it can be a severe injury to the brain. So in the beginning, we hope that it's going to be a mild injury. He'll walk, he'll talk, he'll have a job someday. But over some months or even years, we realize he has a very severe form of cerebral palsy. And so we have to accept that we're going to take care of him. We're going to feed him every bite of food in his whole life for 22 years. We're going to change him and help him move from place to place, push him in his wheelchair.
Okay.
Over time, what might have seemed like a burden in the beginning felt less and less like a burden and more like a blessing. And the reason was this boy had some sort of radiance inside of him.
Okay.
He had some sort of love within him. Maybe it came out through his eyes. That was just startling, not only to his family, but to most of the people he met. Were deeply and profoundly affected by this sense of just pure goodness that was inside of him. So over time, it became less and less, seemed like less and less of a burden to care for him, and it was almost easy.
Okay.
The fact that he was nonverbal was challenging because we had to learn to communicate in nonverbal ways.
Yeah.
With expressions, with touches, with just intuition about what he was feeling, what he was thinking. And we all got good at that over time, for the most part. Just yesterday, a chaplain wrote me a note about him, and she gave me a very beautiful metaphor that I'd never heard before.
Yeah.
She said that Graham was like the conductor of an orchestra, meaning he, the conductor, makes no music.
Yeah.
But without the conductor, there is no music from the people around him.
It's interesting.
So I love that metaphor. I just heard it yesterday for the first time, and it describes, I think it describes Graham quite perfectly. There was something inside of him that's hard to put into words, that was very close to perfection. I mean, he never hurt anybody. He was never mean. He was never unkind. He was a loving soul.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good one. A good way to look at it. That's a good way to look at it. And from that pre-Jabberwocky experience, you tell us that it was some kind of hope that went into despair, and finally you find yourself going to Jabberwocky. What decision led to that, if things were getting better and better by the day? I mean, or rather, if not getting better, you are able to handle every single day, every passing day.
Somebody described Jabberwocky as a place where hope flourishes. And so we found a person that was working as a volunteer there, and she was able to get Graham in there. Getting into Jabberwocky is kind of like getting into Harvard. It's not so easy. There's a lot of people who want to go there and only a few spaces.
Okay.
And the reason there are only a few spaces is that people want to come back next year and the year after that.
Okay.
So there's not much turnover.
Yeah.
But we heard what I told you before, that we heard that this is a special place where people have fun and they do exciting things. They challenge each other. They are not afraid to fail, to try something they've never tried before. And in the end, they support each other with open hearts, open minds. maybe they argue at times, but in the end, they care deeply about one another. And in fact, they love one another.
Okay.
So that sounded like a place anyone would want to go to. And
Yeah.
when we had an opportunity to send our son there, we took it immediately.
Yeah. Okay. And you got the chance also to be there with him.
Yeah.
And something that could not have been very clear from the beginning, Jabberwocky is not a full-time camp. It's a seasonal camp, if I got that right now,
Yes.
correctly. So how many months per year?
So in the summertime in New England, which is very short, we have camp running all through July and all through August.
Okay.
So really for 2 months. There's some events that happen in the fall also for families with disabled kids.
Okay.
But mostly, historically, it would run during July and August. And disabled children or adults were entitled to come for as little as 1 week or as much as a month or even longer.
Okay.
And again, there was quite a demand for people to come there. So not everybody could stay the whole time. Some kids would just stay for two weeks.
Okay.
But then New England gets very cold in the wintertime, and it's not an ideal place down there for a camp in the winter. Yeah.
So this meant that you had a normal job, a day job, as you described in. I mean, your job describes as a physician. You had a full-time job, and when summertime came, you went to the camp.
Yes.
And your wife also had a job, or hers was to look after Graham?
Yeah. Well, luckily, my partners in my medical practice were happy to cover my practice while I was there. And then I would return the favor if they wanted to go someplace, some other time of the year. I would cover their practices.
Okay.
So that all worked out happily, and they were excited that I could spend time at Jabberwocky. Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's wonderful. And now, according to this summary, it shows that most of the time Graham and you are having much more time at home than at Jabberwocky, and you chose Jabberwocky as the basis of your book. And it's because of what you already told us, the life there, the lessons that you may have got from there, the experiences that Graham, you, and Graham's mom had at the camp, and all the other children that you observed. So, and tell us much more about now Jabberwocky. You mentioned about, I read briefly you talking about children laughing at one another. We talked about laughter being the best medicine. Now, children, and not only children, but the campers, the other campers laughing at one another. How do people take laughing at, did the others, I mean everybody, did everybody take laughing at someone laughing at you, people laughing at you as a positive thing?
Well, let's just say the Jabberwocky does not believe in political correctness.
Okay.
So there's no reason to fear being silly or saying something to another person that's quite seemingly harsh at first.
Okay.
Because everyone there knows that behind that is a deep sense of caring for one another.
Okay.
So we don't care about political correctness down there at all. Laughing at each other is a big part of that. Teasing each other is a big part of that.
Okay.
The reason I chose the name for my book, besides the fact that it was a nonsense poem, besides the fact that it was a camp, it really, in my opinion, for me, it becomes in the end a philosophy.
Okay.
A way of looking at the world, a way of looking at each other, a way of looking at ourselves, in which we open up our hearts and minds to other people. We're not afraid of other people. We're not afraid of people who are different.
Yeah.
And even though we might argue sometimes or disagree sometimes, in the end, we choose to support one another. We choose to care for one another. We choose to love one another. And regard ourselves as a single family.
Ah.
So that's sort of the philosophy of Jabberwocky, is why I chose the word to be the title of my book. In addition to the fact that it refers obviously to the camp itself,
yeah,
but it refers more to a way of thinking about the world around us.
Ah, beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I want to imagine that the life that you lived there and the lessons that we are going to draw from this Jabberwocky book is going to be meaningful to very many people who are listening to this or watching this video right now. And at this point, I will ask them, please take the book, go to Amazon, buy the book, or jabberwockybook.com. That spelling we will give you at the end of the show, because it's a long word for some people.
Yeah.
And now, please tell us the outline of the book. I mean, well, it talks about lessons of love from a boy who never spoke. What are some of the lessons that someone is going to do? And we have a bigger picture, but maybe you could draw us closer to some of the little single and smaller points there.
Well, I think one of them, Anthony, is that people who give a lot benefit greatly.
Yeah.
So the volunteers, the people who took care of Graham, the counselors, we call them, every one of them would say that they get more out of volunteering at camp than they give.
Okay.
So those who give themselves become full. That's another way of looking at it. So, we all know that the corny cliche, it's better to give than receive.
Yeah.
But around Camp Jabberwocky, it's very true. The people are just constantly trying to assist other people.
Yeah.
And they're not thinking so much about themselves, which turns out to be, by the way, kind of a gift, a paradoxical gift. For example, when I'm there, I don't have to worry about how I look. I don't have to worry about whether my car is dirty.
Okay.
I don't have to worry about what's going on so much in my life with my bills or whatever, because I'm trying to focus on these other people. So there's a sort of gift there involved in being one of the volunteers, where your focus is on other people, not on yourself. Because so much of the time, our focus is on ourselves. And when we focus on all these other people, this is fun, and it just becomes a joyful experience.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I'm trying to imagine this, and this maybe you have a clearer picture more than some of us may be having. You train to be a physician, and then training to be a physician, you're given a life challenge. Let's say we are saying in the lifetime of Graham, that puts your profession into test. Why does this happen?
Yeah. Well, that's a tough pill to swallow as a physician, that you can't fix something.
Yeah, and again, you can't fix it. Yeah.
So in Graham's case, something damaged his brain.
Yeah.
During his mother's pregnancy. We will never know what it was.
Yeah.
But we have to choose to accept the way he is and make the best of that.
Okay.
And then, to our amazement, the way he was quite astonishing and life-giving, even though he couldn't say it in words.
Yeah.
He changed our lives entirely in an extremely positive way, and made us look at the world in a much more beautiful way than we ever would have before.
Yeah.
We have a joke with our friends who have able-bodied children.
Okay.
And sometimes they will say, boy, that must have been so hard to have a son like that who can't walk. You have to pick him up all the time. You have to feed him. And we would say, well, not really. Maybe you're the lucky one.
Yeah.
because we don't have to worry about Graham shoplifting. We don't have to worry about Graham getting arrested for being drunk and disorderly. And we don't have to worry about Graham telling us that we suck as parents. So we would have that, throw that joke back and forth with our friends with able-bodied kids.
Mm-hmm.
And some, there's some truth in every joke, right?
Yes, yes.
So in many ways, we felt extremely lucky to have him. And by the way, we did find ways to go outside and do a lot of normal things. Like we got a bicycle that had 2 seats, and I would pedal in the back and Graham would sit in the front.
Yeah.
We even learned how to ski on the snow, and we learned how to use a kayak on the water.
Okay.
So we had some examples, some pioneers who showed us that these things were possible. And we embraced the idea that if we really, really wanted to, we could get out of the house and do almost everything.
Okay.
And so people did not need to feel sorry for us because we were outside doing normal things.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And you carrying the hope for Graham, who didn't outwardly express it. He could not express what he was feeling or the thoughts that may have been crossing his mind. Although he understood, I believe he understood what was going on around him.
Yeah.
So you carrying the hope for Graham and taking that hope and bringing it to us through Jabberwocky, the book, that's quite commendable. And I commend you for that. And thank you for being a father and being a caring human being who passes on the light to others.
Thank you, Anthony.
Yeah. And I'm always encouraged to see some people who are living through their disability, so to say, and taking it positively and doing something out of their own life to express gratefulness, to teach a lesson to some others, to give hope to someone who may have been hopeless. For example, I like this man known as Nick Vujicic. Maybe you know him.
No.
You might have to see him. He is a man who was born without arms or legs.
Okay.
Yeah, so Nick Vujicic was born, he might have lost hope at the beginning, was giving up, almost giving up at the beginning, but at some point in life, he picked up and he is now doing wonders around the world. Even without arms or legs, he's going all over the world, giving people hope, telling people that disability is not inability. He still can do all those things that you mentioned. He can play golf, he can play football, go fishing, do all those kinds of things and still live a full life. He even got married and has some very beautiful kids. So him being one passes a message of hope to other people who may have been giving up. And you now giving us Jabberwocky to tell us that life can still be lived even without the full perception of the human senses. Yeah. This is wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome, Anthony.
Yeah. So whom would you like to read this book? Tell us the people you would like to read this book.
Well, I think one class of people who could benefit from the book are people who have someone in their family with disability.
Yeah.
And who might be struggling with adversity and struggling to figure out how they can do normal things, and how they can find hope in a situation that's challenging.
Yeah.
So I think one group of readers or listeners would be people like that, who have someone in the family who's disabled. A larger group would be people who have lost someone they love.
Okay.
Because we lost Graham when he was 22, suddenly. He and I were in a swimming pool. He had a seizure. I tried to resuscitate him and I was unable to resuscitate him.
Okay.
It was a shocking, terrible day. So I will say the last third of my book is about dealing with grief, dealing with loss, and trying to understand what it all means, even though it's really hard to understand things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
But you ask yourself questions like, will I see Graham again? So the last third of the book is more of a sort of existential or spiritual questioning that people will have in their minds and in their hearts if they lose someone they love. And sooner or later, we all lose someone we love.
Yeah, sure.
And it's been described as life's harshest reality.
Yeah.
That this will happen. So the latter part of the book deals with that, and there's some heartening stories in there from people that approached us after Graham's passing. That made us feel a lot better about things.
So on that note, tell us some of the ways that you've been able to cope up with the loss of Graham, and you're able to make a joke even as we are on live on video. So tell us how you came to that, accept the fact that Graham is gone. Yes, you still have hope of seeing him in the afterlife, but what's this? Tell us the tips so that with this inescapable part of life of losing someone, we also may find some hope.
One of the social workers I met told me something when Graham died.
Yeah.
She said that it's not how long Graham was here. It's the love he spread while he was here.
Yeah.
So if we look at it that way, 22 years can be regarded as a sort of a long time.
It is.
And I have had, as a doctor, I've had the experience of seeing children die very young, or even newborns die, and their parents only have minutes or hours or days to spend with those children.
Yeah.
So first of all, we try to think of it that way, that we had him for 22 years, and it was a beautiful experience. We wish we still had him very much right now. But he spread an abundance of love and joy during that period, which we can still draw from. Even now, we still try to. And his message of hope and kindness and love, we can try to carry that in ourselves as we go forward in our lives, whatever is left of our lives.
Yeah.
And sort of, I guess you could say, pay forward the gift that Graham gave to us, which was this way of looking at life with an open heart, with an open mind, with the conviction that we are all in this together, all of us. We're all part of one family. And so if we keep that in our hearts, then we're keeping Graham in our hearts, and he's not really gone.
Thank you very much. And a question that I may ask, and this is, did Graham ever smile?
Yes, he smiled all the time.
So that's where you drew the strength, and you always knew when something is not right with him, I guess.
Well, he didn't smile all the time, Anthony. Sometimes he grimaced.
Yeah.
There were times when I could tell something was bothering him. And I would, as a doctor, I would struggle to try to figure out what was wrong. And sometimes I could not figure it out.
Yeah.
So his mom and I would try to help him through those periods, and try to get him through. But that we had to live with some uncertainty of not knowing why. There were times when he was unhappy. Was there something bothering him physically that he couldn't explain? Or was there something bothering him spiritually?
Yeah.
At those times, and we didn't always know. We did the best we could to try to understand, but we didn't always figure it out.
Okay. And if I may ask, are some of the stories inside the book, some of the experiences that you had with Graham, how you mentioned that you kayaked, how you played, whatever you played, those are stories that we are going to find in the book, right?
Yeah. Well, those were stories where we really experienced epiphanies. That is, shocking awareness of what we were actually capable of doing.
Okay.
That we could go down a snowy mountain together on skis.
Okay.
And enjoy a beautiful winter day with the sun coming down on us and some gentle snowflakes. We could enjoy being out on the bay by ourselves in a kayak, with the breeze in our faces and the salt smell of the ocean.
Yeah.
So those were epiphanic experiences. They were transformative experiences, if I can use such a word, where we realized that we were capable of doing almost anything we wanted to do. Not everything, but almost everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And thank you very much for sharing this. This goes to everybody out there who is watching this video, who is listening. There's much more to get from the book. And if you've lost hope, or if you know someone who's lost hope, someone who's downtrodden, someone who is almost giving up on life, go get the book and draw the life lessons that Graham taught at Jabberwocky and at home. And at this point, we want to thank Steve very, very much for taking this bold step and bringing out this story of Jabberwocky to us, and also for taking your time to be with us during this show. We really appreciate your presence. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, Anthony, thank you very, very much for doing what you do, and for sharing stories like these.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and thank you, and you're welcome. And before I close it all, do you have just a few words that you can leave us with? Just a few words.
I don't know if your listeners read about Winnie the Pooh, but there's a character named Piglet. And Piglet says one day, "How do we spell love?"
Yeah.
And Pooh says to him, "We don't spell love, we feel it."
Okay.
And I think that's the philosophy of Camp Jabberwocky. That's the philosophy of my son.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's the philosophy of the book I wrote.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Also goes with your hobby of taking photographs, and says that a picture contains 1,000 words.
That's absolutely true. And there's 78 pictures in the book that I took at Camp Jabberwocky.
Oh, that's wonderful. So whoever wants to see Jabberwocky, buy the book and see the pictures that Steve passionately took of the camp together with Graham and all those people that are in the book. So thank you very much once again. We appreciate. Have a wonderful time. All the listeners, thank you for listening. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and to follow us on our Facebook group, Book Place, and on our website, Book Place Media. We would love to hear you and get to connect with you. Thank you very much and have a wonderful time. Thank you.